is the remaining of the trash that needs to be swept up and bagged. The trailer was over this yesterday. So we got everything out that was in here. And this is new, just came out of the house. We couldn't even walk in here before or open the door as we wanted to. So this camera is supposed to be able to pick this up pretty well. We'll see how this works out. But this is all going to go away. Everything in here that you see is going to stop being here except for the concrete slab, these posts, and that gas line down there. We're going to pull this wiring out. We're going to cut this roof out. We're going to cut the walls down. I had hoped that we'd be able to save some of the bottom of the structure, but it's just too rotted out. Okay, I don't know if you can see how much that's moving, but there's just nothing left behind this. It's all completely gone. And then we'll have the edge of the house right here, and it will come across and enclose everything here in this corner. And then we will have a door coming out, and we'll have a nice little concrete walkway. Got a lot of this cut down the other day. And then we have the shed out there that was built right before the previous owners passed away. And it's a shame to tear this completely out and down, but it is what it is. It's got to go. We have our lovely couch is still here. And there's our second toilet. And then there's still one in the house. And then it looks like there's another toilet right over there. I don't know if you can see it from this side, but there's quite a bit of trash. There's another door. That looks like a wellhead. I think this property is on a well. Interesting. All right, couldn't see that before. There's a lovely toaster. If anyone would like to, sign up for toaster giveaway for that, we can probably do that. All of these trees are going to go away. Actually don't know what's down that side. And then on our walkthrough and cleanup, we actually found another shed. And here it is. So this was all very grown up in the summer, and this is all full of blackberries. So we have another shed on the property that I didn't even spot on the drive-bys and drive-arounds. High quality TV there, very expensive, lovely condition. And some hoses, not much. So this is all going to go to the scrap metal place. And yeah, the doors are pretty messed up. I don't know if someone would actually want to use this for anything here. And then we have this shed that blew over. You can get a better look at it now. Couldn't really see this before. Again, in the summertime, it was all blackberry brambles through here. And yes, this is the backyard. This is not a field or anything else. So it looks like it used to sit over there, and then it flipped over in a storm right over their clothesline pole. So all this is going to get cut up and removed, and we'll take all of this away. And so initially, when we did the walkthrough, I thought that squatters had broken the windows in the bedrooms, but it turns out no. That really big tree had dropped two good-sized limbs. Maybe one ripped the other one off, I don't know. And they landed against the house, and they are actually what smashed the windows. They're still leaning against the house over there, and they bent the window frame as well when they came down. So that's what we've got so far. Back to the chipper. right about here, I start realizing that my technique for this chipper is not appropriate. And I start pulling out the masses of the vines and the smaller branches and folding them over to feed them into the lower horn, which has a much larger diameter and tends to pull the stuff in a little bit better. If you don't match the angle to insert at the top of this hopper with the angle of rotation so that it catches, the stuff just bounces around inside the hopper because the gullet at the bottom of it, for only up to a maximum of 1-inch brush, is very difficult to hit at a good angle to be able to get anything with branches on it down far enough for the cutter to be able to pick them up and pull them in. That said, once they do actually go in, the chipper is doing a really good job of getting a pretty fine mulch processed out the other end. I had just talked over it here, but I've put a 3-inch branch in, and this has jammed the rotor. And this is the first jam I've had, so now we've got to figure out how to clear it. Now that I've got it stuck, there's an infeed tube that comes in over here. And this comes around as it's spinning and strikes it going that way, going up this way, with the flail. And the flail does the chopping. And what I had to do was put a pry bar. It was stuck right about there. I apologize, I thought the camera was on. Put a pry bar between the housing and here and push it in the opposite direction. So push it this way. And then that released the stick on the other side. And I don't know about 3 inches, but at the same time, some of this wood is really heavy duty wood. Bodark or Osage orange is pretty tough, and some of this is that clearly was not. But I'm curious how it's going to handle some of this good-sized Osage orange. In fact, I think I'm just not going to put the larger pieces down it. I'm just going to use the branches and get them done and stack the rest of this up way in the back and maybe take it home and use it for some firewood. It's too small for using really for anything else, but all right, so put the plate back right here, and the screws have multiple washers. They're poor quality screws. I'm gonna upgrade these if I have to take them off and put them back on a bunch. And yeah, let's get it back up, get it running. The hopper could be operator error. As you can see, it goes straight down through, and then you can see the daylight down there at the bottom. I'm just not getting contact to pull it through with this one here at the top. And some of the comments I'd seen online said to get a stick and push it down in there. Well, that's fine, but as you may be able to tell from over there, I'm kind of having trouble getting the vines, which I have a lot of, to go through this. I'm gonna have to think about that for a little bit. All right, let's get back to chipping. The top hopper on this continues to give me trouble. Looking down from the top, it's apparent that there's a wider section for insertion on my right-hand side for the operator to be able to get things down in to be pulled into the chipper more effectively. I'll get into here in a little bit more about this particular chipper, but I had bought this chipper because it was used. I got a really good deal on it. I thought that it was probably going to be fairly appropriate for the work that I was going to be doing. In retrospect, it worked just okay. As you can see in many parts here where I've got the vines bundled up and I'm feeding those in, I would have liked to have had a larger opening to be able to feed this in, but it did the job. It got everything that I needed to do done fairly reasonably when I was working with these vines. I just had to adapt how I was doing it. The motor does bog down a little bit with the really green stuff, which is not surprising considering in many cases here, I had just cut it within the last half hour. But the older, drier stuff basically explodes when it hits those front chipper assemblies, and it just produced a lot of dust. Now, I'm glad I put that rug over to the right-hand side to keep a lot of this from being blown into the neighbor's yard. But if there had been a car or a vehicle over there while I was doing this, I would have had to change my method completely because it was just throwing stuff all over the place when I was grinding up the drier material. All right, well, it's after lunch. Turned you guys around so you can see how much of the pile we've got. So we started out here, and we're all the way over here now. So I'm hoping we can get all the piles ground up today. And trying to keep this mess off the neighbor's property, so I'm going to move this over just a little bit more. Get the gas refilled here. Now, the gas was a little bit of a challenge to fill up with the short, well, I haven't used that much gas, with the short nozzle, so I went ahead and got a bendy one. And I've noticed that when I'm doing this, a lot of this smaller debris is falling right down on top of the engine block. So if I were working with leaves, I'd have to be a lot more careful. But yeah, we're gonna get this fed through, and as you can see, the temperature jumped a good 30 degrees from what it was this morning. It was warmer, then we had a windy, really cold period come through, and now 2 hours later, it's almost 65.